All right, welcome to the first episode of Yamanote Tech podcast, and I'm going to be your host for today. It's Chris Samuel, and I'm trying to go ahead and just mellow out all the kinks. It's going to be, basically coming with starting a new podcast. I'm a big fan of podcasts, and I will listen to a lot. Some of them are sometimes actual video podcasts. But this podcast is going to be about pretty much people who are in tech who are pretty much new and do not really have much to, where to start. Maybe we can all get together and talk about these things. I'm not necessarily new. I'm actually been developing for about maybe 8 to 9 years if you count, a lot of the work that I did prior to graduating from school. I basically feel that there's a need for helping other people who are also interested in development find ways to get work, whether it's working with a big company or small company or even starting up an entrepreneurship role. I think that with the future looking very big for the internet and looking very good for developing for anybody, that you're probably going to need to know where you can get your questions answered. With this type of podcast, it would be nice to keep it short and sweet. Many podcasts I actually know of when I was listening to earlier, they usually go on for maybe 1, 2, 3 hours. Now I would probably allow that to be some sort of special guests or some special event. We probably would have long videos, but for mine I would like for it to be no more than 30 minutes. So for this episode, I'll just talk about my setup. Right now I'm going to be using Anchor. Anchor is a browser based podcast recording service that allows you to set up messages, or set up your library, even your transitions to different podcasting. One of the things that I'm actually trying to go ahead and do is figure out a way to discuss topics in easy to understand way. Many people who may come to this podcast may not really be tech enthusiasts, but I do feel like there are some things that the common person may be able to take away from this show. This show is not supposed to be where you go rambling on about technology that is outside the scope of modern people. I would like to be able to have a show where people would go ahead and kind of talk about, hey, I'm trying to go ahead and perhaps I want to make a website using something simple, like something like Squarespace. What are some of the things that I should pay attention to? Where should I go get my my domain name from, or should I have somebody who is technical, work with me to make sure that we're putting in the right things to get our names across? Like, should I go ahead and hire a person with SEO? Those things are, it's like the type of thing I want to be able to have on this show, where people can chime in on like their blogs, or they can talk about, we could talk about some of the things that's going to be being in store with some of the technologies that I'm familiar with, or we'll have people who are familiar with other technologies and they'll be able to give a heads up and talk with people. Maybe we'll have people come on the show live and be able to call in and talk with us about these things. And I don't know, we're going to experiment and make sure that everybody gets their say. Another thing that I'm going to basically work on is that we probably will have, different types of episodes. We might have an episode that will be strictly a podcast, an audio podcast that probably will come out like once a week. You might have a podcast, video live streaming from like YouTube or Twitch, where we'll basically talk about a little bit more in depth with people, like interviewing people and where they work at, what they do, and what are some of the things that they struggled with. And then we'll probably go ahead and have some actual, YouTubers or developers that are in my area talk about their lives and what they're interested in, and see if we can get enough people to, just collaborate on different things. So, the sky's the limit. I think that people believe that development and web development and software development really has to start at a job, or has to start with some school assignment, when it actually starts with your ideas. And if you have an idea that you may want to be able to work with, you can find people who are willing to collaborate with you and get those ideas out there. A lot of us out here may have like solutions for different people's ideas or problems that may not have to always come from some big company. You might be able to solve people's ideas just by working on something that you're passionate about. Now, with about me, I've been studying basically technology. I went to school for graphic design, visual communications at Briarcliff College back in um, 2005, and it wasn't really that big. The technology was okay. We had Adobe Photoshop, we had web design. I was very interested in being a web designer. The idea between what we have today, front end and back end, and middleware, and all of that wasn't really there. When you worked on a website, you worked on the whole stack, as what we call the lamp stack. So, and I would have like PHP BB, which was like some sort of framework you use to create like communities, blogs, and forums. And I actually spent a lot of time working with Cold Fusion, and I was trying to get into Flash, but work was very sporadic. I would always would try to find people who were looking to start a business, need a website, would always charge very little, and just be able to get my work out there. Fast forwarding, I was never really like working consistently until 8 years ago, where I started work and landed a job working with a big social network company called the National Association for Professional Women. And it was a very big project where we worked on a social website where we had users who had profiles, and everything was written in a language called Cold Fusion. It's very similar to PHP, but it's proprietary based to um, Adobe, and I spent a lot of time working with like the front end and the back end, and it was very interesting to be able to work on that with a lot of the. There was like maybe three people on the team: the director of the IT department, the project manager, and myself. I also worked where I spent a lot of time working with the Brookhaven National Labs, and I spent working with what do you call it again, KDDI, and very, very, very minimal stuff, about mostly consulting and contracting. So it wasn't like with full time work, but it was more like working with a staffing agency, you know. So just recently I kind of got like a big kind of work. Not real recently, but in 2014 I spent some time working with Cablevision, where I was able to work on their .NET and .com sites. Basically tuning them with maintenance and enhancements with the team, and working heavily just on JavaScript, the front end part of the application. Working in development really puts you in a situation where you're going to have to learn on the job or learn all the time. Whatever. I'm always having to do that, and I think I'm in that whole mode now where I'm learning all the time. I think that if I went ahead and put some effort into developing something on my own, I have a lot of experience on what to look forward to and how to, map things out to get things done. I've developed some small applications for, some personal clients that allows them to take advantage of like, YouTube and Facebook's API, being able to use it like similar to like WordPress and stuff like that. But when you're working on a big team like at Cablevision or you're usually working on a very small piece of application, and then it's basically being scaled up. So I definitely think that on this talk, I would like to talk more about that with people that ask questions about about things that I've done. We'll ask questions about what I'm doing. We'll probably even have like maybe people can chime in on Twitter, or Facebook or whatever is bad. I think we might start with Twitter, and have people talk about their what any questions that they may have. So I think that's going to be it. I'm not really going to push too much with like a big whole video and stuff like that. But that's basically my take with it. The next podcast we may have, we're going to have a developer who's interested in in front end development, come in and talk about their stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to have more and more episodes like this. Whether they are 15 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, it doesn't really matter. But I do want to be able to also, build some stuff live. Also maybe have some live coding where we could talk about like our ideas or strategy on solving problems, and not just making it where we're just talking about it. We're actually like, you know, putting where our mouth is. So that's it. Take care and be well.